Hello, lovely viewers. You are most welcome to our channel Poetry Online. In this video, we shall be discussing the role and significance of the major and minor characters of the book Sizwe Bansi is Dead by Atul Fogart. Kindly subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get updates on all our new videos. Once again, let us assure you of a very interesting discussion. Get ready for this lesson. In this video, we shall be discussing the following characters: Styles, Buntu, Sizwe Bansi, Noeto, Dlamini, Zola, Uta Jacob, Mr. Henry Ford, and Mr. Bradley. Let's begin with Sizwe Bansi. Sizwe Bansi is an uneducated black man living in South Africa at the time of the apartheid system. He leaves his home, King Williamstown, to Port Elizabeth in the pursuit of a job to provide a good life for himself, his wife, and his 4 children. As a black man living in apartheid South Africa, his skin color determined where he could live and the job he could do. He is the protagonist of the play, as the events in the play revolve around him. The major issues in the story, the loss or change of identity from Sizwe Bansi to Robert Zolinzima, is central to the major thematic concerns of Atul Fogart and his collaborators. His encounter with a dead man, Robert Zolinzima, changes his life and serves as a turning point in the play. After fully metamorphosizing into Robert Zolinzima, he feels like he is now living rather than existing. As the protagonist of the play, his actions advance the development of the play's plot. It is from his action to leave King Williamstown to Port Elizabeth in the search of a job that the rest of the incidents in the play proceed. He is central to the major thematic preoccupations in the play. He is a victim of oppression, exploitation, dehumanization, racial discrimination, and obnoxious laws. The playwright uses Sizwe Bansi to illustrate the inherent danger in oppressing, abusing, and exploiting people, since such people will only resort to criminality and the use of violence as a strategy for survival. Sizwe Bansi is a representative of the frustrated black race in South Africa, who have no way of escaping the cruel apartheid system. He represents the exploited, denigrated, dehumanized, and victimized black people who take instructions from their white superiors. Through the character of Sizwe Bansi, we realize the cruelty of the apartheid system, as it allows the blacks nothing desirable but menial and dangerous jobs. That is to say, the system has been designed to frustrate blacks and prepare their lives to work at the mines and other menial jobs or dangerous jobs. The playwright Atul Fogart and his collaborators used the character of Sizwe Bansi to illustrate the economic oppressions of blacks by the whites. It was revealed that Sizwe Bansi can only sell potatoes if he has the hawker's license to do so. The heavy bureaucratic procedures in acquiring this license alone is enough to frustrate a person to abort his or her business plan. Atul Fogart uses the character of Sizwe Bansi to shed light on the idea of physical segregation in South Africa during the apartheid system. Because blacks are considered inferior and beneath the whites, they are restricted to black townships. That is, all blacks are confined to King Williamstown or other black townships that is characterized by poverty, low standards of living, lack of social amenities and opportunities. A black man is not allowed to cross the line to the white zone, that is, Port Elizabeth, without proper documentation. Even with proper documentation, blacks are only employed to do menial jobs in the service of the white families. Sizwe Bansi was authorized out of Port Elizabeth to King Williamstown, his hometown, since he doesn't have the proper documentation. As a result, his friend and host, Zola, introduced him to another character called Buntu. It is Buntu who plays a pivotal role in changing the identity of Sizwe Bansi to Robert Zolinzima. Fogart uses Sizwe Bansi to outline the detrimental ways the passbook system has affected blacks in South Africa. After Sizwe's encounter with Robert, he is torn between losing his name and providing for his family. That is to say, Sizwe Bansi is torn between bread and dignity. He is presented as a responsible family man who wants the best for his family. He takes time to write a letter to his wife to keep her updated on the things happening in his life in Port Elizabeth. Even though he is uneducated, he is able to see through the hypocrisy of the whites and their obnoxious laws. Sizwe Bansi sacrifices his dignity in order to be able to provide for his family. That is, Sizwe Bansi has to die so that Robert Zolinzima can live. And with the leaving of Robert Zolinzima, Sizwe Bansi can now provide a good life for his family. According to him, a black man cannot stay out of trouble since it is his skin that causes the problem. Just as a person cannot live without a skin, a black man cannot live without trouble. Notice how Styles in the photographic studio made numerous attempts to make Sizwe Bansi carefree and lively in the pictures he went to snap there. What it simply means is that the black race has been oppressed to such an extent that they do not actually know what relaxation, comfort, peace of mind, and happiness constitutes. The play ends with Sizwe Bansi ending his letter to his wife, declaring vehemently that, for the time being, his troubles are over, and is making preparations for his wife and children to join him at Port Elizabeth. He cautions his wife to spend the money he is sending to her. Wisely, as he will continue to send them money every week. Sizwe Bansi is presented as the frustrated blacks in the apartheid system who are not interested in menial and dangerous jobs with lousy pay. In short, he adopts a false name or circumvents the laws of the apartheid not because he's a criminal or a lawbreaker, but for the time being, it is the only way to ensure his survival. That is to say, an individual's actions are the functions of the social conditions in which the individual finds himself or herself. Let's now move to another interesting character, Styles. Styles is the major character in the play. He is pleasantly portrayed as an educated black South African who sees through the hypocrisy of the whites in the apartheid system. He lives in New Brighton, Port Elizabeth. He was a former worker at Ford Motor Company who left the motor company to start his own business, which is photography. He takes the audience and readers on an educational journey to his former place of work, that is, Ford Motor Company, and what motivated him to start his own business or go back to his earlier profession of photography. Atul Fogart uses Styles to demonstrate that a man's survival is based on one's sense of self-respect. He leaves Ford's factory because of its laborious work, poor conditions of service, and lousy pay to start his own business. Styles also adds to the comedy in the play when he is called upon to translate the words of Mr. Bradley. He represents the exploited blacks who, despite the level of exploitation, are not broken down by the obnoxious laws of apartheid. He uses his education and literacy not only as a tool to mock the oppressors, but also to provide vital services to his people in terms of capturing their history or memories. He exposes the obnoxious laws of the apartheid system that seeks to frustrate blacks, especially in starting one's own business. Whereas most blacks in the apartheid South Africa give the impression that they are helpless victims of obnoxious laws, Styles is deployed in the play as a model of independence and freedom. Styles is conscious of what is going on, but he lacks the requisite will to revolutionary action. He does not confront the apartheid system. Rather, he chooses an individualistic route of self-business, which is equally good because he sets a shining example for all oppressed black people to follow. That is to say, despite the obnoxious bureaucracy in starting a business, the black man can manage his own affairs or the black man is capable of owning his own business. Styles expresses the desire to remember the common people in his community who never get a place in the history books and those whose statues are never erected. Star Studio is an escapist world, another world which manages to shut out the world of appetite, a world where one can simply be anything and go anywhere without restriction. To them, to pose is to be. Lastly, Star's photography is a symbol of black empowerment in a racist regime. Let's now move to Buntu. Buntu is another character central to the thematic concerns in the play. He was born and raised in New Brighton, Port Elizabeth. He has a wife and a child. He tells us of his own struggles in Port Elizabeth and the impossibility of escaping the cruel whip of the apartheid system. Buntu believes that a man's hope for survival in the apartheid regime comes with the abandonment of his self-respect or former identity. Buntu represents all blacks battered by the obnoxious apartheid system and will turn to any means possible so long as it promises their survival. He advises Sizwe Bansi to take up the identity of Robert Zolinzima and forgo his own name, since Robert's passbook will grant him more rights and opportunity. The author equally uses Buntu to depict the absurdly complex bureaucratic system that the apartheid system places South Africa in. Buntu explains to Sizwe Bansi the dire consequences of burning his passbook. He advises Sizwe Bansi to go back to King Williamstown to work in the mines, since it will be impossible to escape the imprisonment of apartheid system by continuing to live in Port Elizabeth when his passbook has endorsed him out of Port Elizabeth. However, upon their encounter with the dead Robert Zolinzima, he advises Sizwe Bansi to take up the identity of Robert Zolinzima. The play derives its title from this clever act. Not only did he help Sizwe Bansi metamorphosize into Robert Zolinzima, he equally trained him or rehearsed with him so that Sizwe Bansi does not falter in the way or act suspicious so that he will be caught. Let's now go to the character of Noweto. Noweto is the wife of Sizwe Bansi, whom he left at King Williamstown. She has 4 children with Sizwe Bansi, of which only 2 are attending school. She is unemployed and thus depends on her husband for survival. Zola. Zola is Sizwe Bansi's friend, who agrees to host him until one day their home was raided by law enforcement agents and thoroughly searched. It was there they realized that Sizwe Bansi is not legally permitted to stay in Port Elizabeth. He, however, introduces Sizwe Bansi to Buntu. Dlamini. Let's now discuss the character of Dlamini. Dlamini is the owner of the funeral parlor next to Styles' studio. He encourages Styles to take up the shop next door to start his own studio. Before Styles ends up in the funeral parlor, he gives Styles advice as to how to overcome the cockroaches in the shop, since the insecticide he is using is proven futile. Uta Jacob. Even though the audience did not get a chance to meet the character of Uta Jacob, Buntu tells a story. Uta Jacob represents all oppressed, victimized, used, and abused black in apartheid South Africa. After laboring tirelessly for his white masters, he meets a terrible fate in his old age. After the death of his white master, the white man's son fired him or sacked him because he does not like him. He continued his life from one trouble to the other until he finally died. They see his death as a symbol of freedom. That is to say, a black man only finds peace after death. Mr. Bradley. The audience do not get a chance to meet Mr. Bradley. However, his character comes alive through Styles' roleplay. He is a mediator of the exploitation of black people in South Africa. He doesn't care about the safety of his black workers, and as such, is not worried about the safety rules and regulations at the plant until Mr. Henry Ford decides to pay them a visit. He tells his black workers to pretend to be happy when Mr. Henry Ford comes in, so that Mr. Henry Ford would think that the workers are satisfied with their working condition. He equally encourages them to sing while they work just to impress Mr. Henry Ford. He represents the white oppressors. He is depicted as superior and more powerful than the blacks. That is, he exploits, dehumanizes, and dictates to the black race. Lastly, Mr. Henry Ford. Mr. Henry Ford is also another character the audience do not get a chance to meet. He is the owner of Ford Motor Company. His visit to South Africa is abuzz with positivity and empowerment of the black race. He is a capitalist working with the apartheid regime to exploit non-white population in South Africa. Thanks for watching this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video.